Hi, everyone. My name is Sina Abdullahian, and I'm a marketing automation specialist here at NVIDIA. Today, I'm going to be presenting a use case on how we pivoted our event on-demand strategy using Path Factory and how we were able to work around iframe compatibility errors. To start things off, let me provide a little context on the situation we were faced with. So we run GTC, a tech conference on a yearly basis at the San Jose McHenry Convention Center. And this year in particular was shaping up to have some of the highest attendance yet. However, the fear of COVID shutdown was growing bigger and bigger as the event approached. So our executive staff was faced with the following decision. They could postpone the event indefinitely and announce a new date once COVID decided to wind down a little bit, or they could shift the event digital and we could run our first digital trade show. So while a digital event would bring a ton of uncertainty, the issue is that postponing the event would greatly reduce the hype behind it, as we had been promoting it for months before. So with this in mind, we decided to go down that digital event route. All right. With this decision, as I had said earlier, is going to come with a ton of unknowns in everyone's work cycles. Like, this was our first time running a digital event. Some questions like, who's going to own digital session production? Or what about our sponsors? Will they remain sponsored even if it shifts digital? And it came through everyone's heads. However, even knowing this, we were able to overcome these unknowns for the most part and run a fantastic digital event, one that actually captured the most attendees of any GTC to date. So after its completion, we began digging into the goods and bads to find out what we could do better moving forward. We realized that while the event had a ton of educational content that people could view freely during the event's time frame, there wasn't really much happening once the event ended. The content kind of just sat there. So this realization led to our teams wanting to build out a custom resource center using our main web platform, Adobe Experience Manager. And for this build, we had to keep the following constraints in mind. It needed to be filterable, specifically in a similar fashion to that of our event platform, RainFocus. It needed to be searchable, so that if a user had an exact session name or code in mind, they'd be able to find it and filter through the fluff. It needs to be branded, specifically matching our branding regulations on our site, like column width, font size or type, image aspect ratios, and so on. Authentication and gating, we should be able to alternate what gate is shown based on the target audience of the session. If the session is targeting developers with a more technical session, we should require a developer account to be created or logged into before they view. Whereas if we decided to target a business folks with a more high level session, we should instead gate the session with a lead gen form that would funnel leads into our Marketo lifecycle. And lastly, time. We should be able to deliver the page relatively quickly. The longer we're going to wait for this, the more the existing interest dies out and the less people find value in it. So while issues 1 through 4 did not pose much concern, everyone knew that number 5 was going to be the more difficult one to accommodate for. Creating a resource center from scratch is going to require constant resources to be available at all times. And it's resources that we didn't really have without sacrificing core business functions. So once everyone acknowledged this, the teams decided to make this a more long-term goal. However, in the short term, this demand still existed. Now, acknowledging this time constraint, Path Factory's Explore Page solution became the shining light, because we can create branded resource pages in a matter of minutes. The time really comes from formatting and getting everything into the content library. So off the bat, Path Factory met our filter, search, lead gen gate, and time requirements. The 3 main issues that halted us from progressing forward were mismatching image aspect ratios, which is a subsection of our branding requirement, developer program authentication, one of the 2 required gating mechanisms we needed, and load times for an event-scaled Explore page, something we hadn't done previously. Regarding the mismatching aspect ratios, on our site, the standard aspect ratio is 16:9, whereas Path Factory requires a 4:3 image to avoid any auto formatting it does. So this issue required our teams to go into each session file and replace the stored OG image associated with each session from the original to a 4:3 copy placed over a solid gray background. This allowed us to import the image using CSV bulk upload without any of the automatic formatting taking place. Now, for developer program authentication, notice that the out-of-the-box flow was requiring users to log into their account within the Path Factory recommend track iframe. We needed to ensure that this login occurred outside of Path Factory, as logging in within any iframe could create great user security profile risks. To combat this, our developers created an authentication flow that instead would take you out of the iframe and present a CTA button later to return you to the experience once you've engaged. Lastly, regarding load times, we had never built a page of this scale within Path Factory before, and we definitely expected the system to be under a much larger load than usual. This was a drawback to the page, but it was acceptable to us in order to meet this large demand. So now that these roadblocks have been taken care of for the most part, we finally had everything we needed to create our on-demand events resource center. After a couple of weeks of asset formatting and explore page optimization, we launched our event page in time to meet this customer demand. So I've talked about this page enough. Let's actually take a deep dive into the page itself. Welcome to our events page. This page aims to mirror a developer site experience by using their header and footer bar, while also including live session topics from our platform RainFocus to kind of create a similar look and feel experience, something that most of the people are used to and don't need to relearn. So during this time, I want to show you the ins and outs of this Explore page, but specifically the two different authentication flows that are set up for this page. Depending on the accessing user's persona, the experience will slightly vary, as you're going to experience different gating mechanisms. The first flow is used for high-level sessions. It utilizes a standard Path Factory lead gen form that funnels leads into Marketo. To do this, I'll first search for my session, Deep Learning Demystified, and access it by clicking the module. Once you get into this page in the recommend track or any other high-level session, before you have a chance to click the play button, a form will pop up, preventing you from continuing. Once you fill this form out once, you'll no longer need to provide this information again to engage with future high-level sessions. So I will fill this out and hit submit, and I'll be able to access the content. One thing to note is that this form contains the minimum required fields for our Marketo database to be able to segment into all of our appropriate lists. For example, now they can be routed to the appropriate mailing list, write nurture campaigns, and we can even set up advanced sales follow-up flows based on their attendance patterns. Next, let's take a deeper dive into the developer account creation method. For this, I'll look for my session, DLSS 2.0 image reconstruction. Once you found it, you'll get taken to a recommend track, but you'll notice that there's a slightly different landing page view. Here, it will prompt you to log in or join once you click the Watch Now button. When we click it, you'll notice we'll get taken out of the iframe into a specific session page for the session you engaged with. From here, you'll log in or create your account, and you'll be able to access your content. Do note that if you do plan on logging in, your login may look a little different than mine, as I'm using SSO. But at the end of the day, it's the destination that matters. right? And now that we're here, you can click play and we can engage with the session freely. Once you're done, you'll actually be able to click this View More GTC 2020 Content button to return to the original Explore page that you were looking at before. From here, you'll actually be free to engage with any session on this page within the iframe, as you'll no longer need to authenticate yourself. Your login credentials should be cached into your internet browser. So now that you've seen how it looks, I'll wrap things up with a summary of the page's performance and some of the statistics about the content. So we were able to host 471 assets on this page, consisting of 84 higher level and 387 technical sessions. And the assets actually consisted of 413 sessions, 39 panel discussions, 15 demos, and 4 tutorials. This page created 16,650 new sessions outside of the GTC timeframe, held over an 18% binge rate, and had a strong average view time spent of 5 minutes 33 seconds. So this wraps up my presentation, and I'll now open the floor to any questions.